Hey guys, welcome back to another video. 2 months ago, I put a little poll on the community tab and I was asking you guys like what's your favorite genre? And I was really surprised that most people's favorite genre was nonfiction. So I thought I would start off with the nonfiction books that I read recently. It's April now. I think I finished these in March, I want to say. I don't really remember, but yeah, I will just get into it. I'll share my rating and then I also have my reading journal with me. So I don't know. I think actually I have been pretty consistent with my reading journal, but you can see how it kind of just, like in January, I wrote a lot in January and then I kind of just started writing down like, okay, these are the books that I read, you know. For some of them I put quotes, but I did try to make sure that I put all of the ratings. So, yeah, I'm keeping up with it. But anyway, let's start with this one. A Wife After God's Own Heart by Elisabeth George. It took me a while to finish this. I started reading it in January and then I finished in March, I believe. Um, I wasn't reading it every day, mind you, so that's why I wasn't consistent with it. It doesn't actually take 3 months to read, but even if it does, whatever, I guess. It's 216 pages. I gave this 4.25 stars. So, pretty good rating. There's a lot of information in this book. Like, it, what I like about it, I guess, is that it doesn't just touch on, like, oh, communicating with your spouse or finances, but then it also goes on to, like, raising children, how to, and I think even within raising children, like what happens when your children become adults, what about grandchildren, extended family. So I really do feel like this book, it covered such a wide range of what is involved in a marriage, because when you get married, your like extended family is also kind of involved in that. So just learning how to navigate through those difficulties and those conflicts. The thing that I will say about this book is that I was just pressing on to finish because I was almost done and I didn't want to like DNF it when I could definitely finish the book. But sometimes it was just hard to get through because, like I said, she gives so much information, but there's not a lot of storytelling. Like, towards the end, she started telling more, like, talking about more situations in her life, and then it would connect to, like, the tips that she gave. But there wasn't a lot of storytelling in this, and I'm honestly not sure if I agreed with everything that was in this book either. But I really do commend her on going over like so many topics. And you could really tell that she has a passion for the Lord and for marriage. I could really, really sense the passion in her writing. So the topics are growing in the Lord, working as a team, learning to communicate, enjoying intimacy, managing your money, keeping up the home, raising your children, extending love to family, tending your career, making time for fun, serving the Lord, and reaching out to others. So, really, really good topics. And yeah, I gave it a pretty high rating. 4.25 stars is really good. Something to keep in mind is that it's, for as many topics as it covers, it's really more of a general kind of, this is how you should conduct yourself and this is what to do. So if you have, or this is what I feel, keep in mind, like, I am single, I'm not like, very experienced on the topic of marriage, but I feel like if you have a complex marriage, You're not going to be able to like follow these things to a T. And you know, it's a book, so you don't really follow books to a T anyway. Um, the Bible is our primary source, right? Of course. But yeah, I just feel like if you have like a complex marriage situation, this is gonna sound a little like too general and not for everyone's situation, but I still think that it is worth reading because if you just read it and look at like the heart of it, it works. So, yeah, hopefully that makes sense. I feel like my glasses always have that glare, but I can't see it when I look straight into the glasses, you know? Let me just check. Okay. Anyway, on to the next book. I can definitely see it out of the corner of my eye, though. The next book that I read is Passion and Purity by Elisabeth Elliot. So, Passion and Purity, really good book. It's basically just talking about her experience, her courtship with Jim Elliot, who was a missionary and I believe like martyred for his faith. So I really like that book. I like how she talks about the feelings and stuff that she struggled with and how they both ultimately surrendered their relationship to the Lord. I mean, it was pretty amazing. Like, she had to wait so long to get married to him, had to deal with, you know, self control and all of those things. And so I feel like that is a very good book to read, you know, if you're single or if you're in a relationship but you're not yet married. Um, Here are some quotes from the book. I think I wrote down two. It says, "If the yearnings went away, what would we have to offer up to the Lord? Aren't they given to us to offer? It is the control of passion, not its eradication, that is needed." I feel like that is really good because as Christians, we can really struggle, you know, with the intensity of our emotions, which can lead us to sin. But she's saying that, you know, the like passion that we have in relationships, it's God given, but it needs to be surrendered to God. It needs to be under control, it needs to be refined. So I liked that. And then another quote, well, this isn't really a quote, but I wrote down, "We must love wholeheartedly without demanding anything in return, even in marriage." That one just kind of stood out to me. I found it like very convicting. But surprisingly, I gave Passion and Purity 4 stars, which is a slightly lower rating than A Wife After God's Own Heart. And I'm surprised because I just feel like it's Elisabeth Elliot, and I don't know. I just feel like her writing is a big deal, so to speak. But I think the reason that I gave it a lower rating is because I think just because of the nature of the book, it's meant to talk to you about courtship, right? But you don't. I felt like I didn't really learn a lot about marriage itself. Hey there, so I just wanted to say that with Passion and Purity, I did learn about marriage in terms of how we should treat each other, but I didn't learn about the practical side of marriage. That's what I was trying to say. Whereas, I mean, on the flip side, I guess in this book, A Wife After God's Own Heart, right? You don't really learn about courtship. It is really targeted towards people that are already married. But I also found a lot of the stuff just like applicable for everyday life. So I don't know. I just ended up giving it a slightly higher rating, which I was surprised by because I feel like I went through it very quickly. Whereas A Wife After God's Own Heart, I really had to like push through to read it. So I feel like it was Passion and Purity was more enjoyable to read, but for this season of my life, A Wife After God's Own Heart, it gave me more information and it made me think more about certain topics. So, yeah. Anyway, and then I read, this isn't really in order, even though I'm saying like next I read, but anyway, I read Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. Actually, I listened to this. I did not read this This font is so tiny, but such an amazing book. Like, this book is wonderful. I recommend that everybody read it. It's short, and obviously it's talking about slavery, and it's documenting what his experience was like as a slave, and talking about, how he escaped from slavery. So it's a heavy topic, and it's very sad, but the way that he writes it, it's not like, wow, this feels traumatizing to read, Even when he talks about the abuse that he suffered or that others suffered under the hands of slave owners, like, it's not the way that it's described is not like, I don't know, just the way that he wrote it, I was able to read through it and not feel like, oh my gosh, this is too heavy. And I'm so, so glad that I read it. I mean, it's really an inspiring book. And what I loved is how he talked about his faith in this book. And he talked about how the so called Christianity of the slave owners is not Christianity at all. And I think that's so important because sometimes people may ask, like, well, how can you be a Christian if God condones slavery? But then you have someone who actually went through slavery, who does believe in Jesus, and who is saying, like, the God of the Bible, like, what God says in the Bible does not match the actions of the slave owners. So it was amazing. Like, I really, really do recommend that everyone read this, and I gave it 5 stars, no surprise, right? So, yeah, those are the 3 nonfiction books I read. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one.